Meagan Mermaid, author of the forthcoming book Mermaid Mystery School, and this is your Mermaid Moon Report for the new moon in Gemini, occurring on June 13th at 12:43 p.m. Pacific Standard Time at 22 degrees of Gemini. So if you're not sure how this moon will affect you personally, you'll want to check your personal star chart. And if you're not sure how to do that, leave a comment below and I'll be happy to walk you through that. But overall, Gemini new moons are very mental. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, so it's all about thought. It's all about what ideas we can come up with and how we can share them. Gemini is all about learning as much as possible so it can share it with others. And it's also all about our communities and our brothers and our sisters, whether it be our soul family or our real family. What Gemini wants to do is connect with others through communication, and it does so close to home. So Sagittarius is all about the big picture and Gemini is all about the details. So how can we get to the little details and understand as much as possible about the smallest aspects and then build upon that? So Gemini is also multifaceted. And if you've ever met a Gemini, it seems like they probably have a million different personalities. And that's because Gemini energy is so inquisitive. It wants to know everything and to be everything. And so in this Gemini moon, this is a time for us to examine all of the facets that make us up, all of our different personalities, all of our different strengths, and realize that we're all sorts of things blending together as one. So in this Gemini moon, this is a great time to learn something new, to connect with your tribe, and to think differently. So we've been in Gemini season for about a month now, and what we've been learning is how to connect with our soul family, how to share what we learn, how to find our tribe, and how to be in community with others. And so now that we've perfected that, on this new moon in Gemini, this is a time to set intentions for what you can learn next. What is your next achievement? Gemini is the twins. So it's all about having more than one passion, more than one love. Maybe there's one thing that you really enjoy and then there's another thing, and you've thought that you're only supposed to focus on one, and that's actually not true. Gemini likes to have its hand in every pie. So this is a chance for you to get versatile and figure out what are the things that you're interested in and how can you diversify yourself by learning new things and by studying new things and just being open to all sorts of new information. Gemini moons are also a great time to take a short trip, so a weekend getaway or somewhere where you can just have an adventure and reset your mind. But during this moon in Gemini, we're going to be experiencing some polarities that are going to challenge us a little bit. So the sun is going to be in Gemini as well, and the sun and the moon are going to be squaring Neptune in Pisces. And so when Gemini energy is squaring Pisces, it's sort of like a square between our mind, Gemini, and our soul, Pisces. And what can happen is that if we're not in alignment with our path and our purpose, then we can create limiting beliefs in our mind or download them from the collective consciousness, because when we're at a lower vibration, we're going to be receiving lower energy thoughts. It's like if you get spam on your computer, it's the same way with limiting beliefs. It's like we can spam ourselves with thoughts, and then if we start to believe those thoughts, then a whole bunch more start to come through. And Neptune is all about the soul, but it's a planet that's ruled by fog, and it can either bring us to imagination and spirituality, or it can create delusion and deception. So we need to be mindful that we're not using our mind and believing our limiting beliefs and thoughts and then taking that into a place of deception, either deceiving ourselves by not pushing forward on something that we love, maybe thinking that it's not possible, or maybe your mind is making you feel bad and you want to numb yourself and you want to go back to an addictive behavior. That can sometimes happen too with that Pisces energy. And Gemini is anxious sometimes. That's the shadow side of Gemini, is that the mind can become restless because it's not being active enough. So this is a time where you need to really be clear that you're only focusing on good and you're only focusing on what you want to create, and keep your mind busy learning and studying things that you love. That way, an idle mind is not going to be open to these negative thoughts that are going to create obstacles in your life. So make sure that you're seeing situations clearly and trust your heart, because that's what can bridge the gap between our soul and our mind, is our heart. So you can always come back to your heart by just taking a few deep breaths in. Coming back to this present moment. And then listen to that stillness of the voice of your heart and allow it to guide you. Then, instead of this square causing you to believe negative things and then acting out by numbing yourself or distracting yourself or going back to addictive behaviors that don't serve you, you can integrate this energy and then come up with visionary ideas from your soul, bridging this, because that's what we're here to do, is create oneness and become unified in our body, heart, mind, and spirit. So during this moon, Mercury, which rules Gemini, is going to be in Cancer, and it just moved into Cancer. So when Mercury is in Cancer, it's a time when we're thinking based on our feelings. So this is a time where you need to trust your gut, trust your instinct. Emotions are like water. So Mercury in Cancer wants to flow, it wants to feel, it wants to trust our instincts and our intuition. But sometimes our mental energy, that Gemini energy, can pull us out of our intuition and have us thinking negative thoughts. So we just need to be mindful that if we're thinking something and it's creating stress, if it's causing overwhelm, if it's making you feel anxious at all, then you know that that's not from love. And so you can discard that. And every single time that you notice that, witness it and shift back into love. That's all that it is. It's like a muscle. Every single time that you have a negative thought, if you witness it and acknowledge it, that's all that it takes to create that space for you to come back to the present moment and come back to your joy. But with Mercury in Cancer, it's going to be opposing Saturn in Capricorn. So this is a time where we're really dealing with that dynamic of Cancer wanting to feel safe and secure and tied up in our little crab shell, and then Saturn wanting to teach us lessons by being out in the world. So sometimes with Saturn, the lessons that we have can be a little harsh. It can feel like maybe we don't have that safety net that Cancer wants. And it can be scary sometimes to be going out in the world when we feel vulnerable. So this is a time to really exercise a lot of self-care and know that it's not just you, that you're not doing anything wrong. It's normal to feel vulnerable. It's normal to feel uncomfortable, especially if you're moving into something new. And this new moon in Gemini is kind of pushing us forward to a new way of thinking, a new way of being. And that's not always easy. Change can be uncomfortable. So it's a time for us to really balance what our achievements are, what our goals are, what it is that we want to strive for. So how can you use your feelings? How can you trust your feelings as your emotional guidance system? Now, just because Mercury is opposing Saturn, it doesn't mean that we have to learn through suffering. It just means that we may come up against a bit more challenging things. And this is the universe's way of helping us to become more patient and to roll with the punches. We're also going to be feeling a little bit of inner child stuff that's coming up, because Mercury in Cancer is also going to be squaring Chiron and Aries. And with Chiron and Aries right now, it's all about our right to exist, where you want to go for something and you feel like something is blocking you, and it brings up this rage. And Aries energy is very innocent, so it's like a child throwing a temper tantrum. So you might be experiencing that in the new moon, where you almost want to have like a spiritual temper tantrum and you want to get angry. And so if you do, this is your opportunity to look at that anger, because it's going to be telling you something. And maybe it's telling you where you feel stuck somewhere. Maybe it's telling you something that needs to be changed. But don't push that anger off. We can feel all of our emotions. It's okay to feel things. It's not going to affect our manifestation. But we need to be mindful of what we do with that anger. So if you're feeling anger, allow yourself to breathe through it, allow yourself to welcome it, to witness it, and ask that anger what it's trying to tell you. Because a lot of times we feel angry because it's masking a feeling of lack. Anger is caused by feeling like something is being taken from us. And so if we're feeling angry, it's a great indicator that we've shifted away from love. Because when we're in that lack mentality, it's easier to think that there's winners and losers, and that if you receive something, then someone else is going to lose something, and that's not really how it works. The universe is abundant and blessed. And so with Chiron and Aries squaring Mercury, just be open to those feelings and know that, you know, people are dealing with some really uncomfortable things, and not everybody knows how to work with that in a loving way. We have to be given tools to work through those things. And so if you're on that spiritual path and you come across someone that lashes out at you, remember that that's where they're at right now, and that anger is a cry for help. So be generous with your forgiveness to yourself and others during this moon, and know that we're just really dealing with a lot of purging. So allow yourself to release those things and call upon your inner child, and be really gentle with yourself. Maybe your inner child wants you to play or spend more time in nature and just having fun, so that you can allow yourself to feel these feelings so they can rise up and be released. So even though our minds are going to be kind of given a run for their monies, we do have a support system, and the universe always creates one positive aspect when another aspect might be a little bit more challenging. And so in this particular moon, even though we might be feeling some inner child wounding, even though it might feel like we're going through some harsh lessons and we want to hide out, and the universe is making us go out and be seen and work when we want to just run for cover, there's always a support system. And so Mercury is going to be sextile to Uranus and Taurus. And so when Cancer and Taurus are together, it really creates stability. It creates that nurturing feeling of Cancer in our emotions, being safe to feel our emotions. And then that Taurus energy helps us to feel stable and secure by connecting with the earth. And with Uranus and Taurus right now, we're going to be experiencing a lot of changes when it comes to our abundance and our self-worth. And if we're not on the right path, the universe is going to nudge us. And luckily, with the Mercury sextile to Uranus, sextiles are always a positive thing. So we might get a positive surprise. Maybe we're going to deal with a harsh lesson, but if we can find that pearl of wisdom, there's going to be a wonderful surprise that can help us to feel more worthy, to create more prosperity, and to feel more secure and abundant. Same with Chiron. If we're feeling inner child wounding, if we can look at that anger, if we can look at our bodily aches and pains and figure out what our emotions and our body is trying to tell us, then we're going to get that surprise or sudden change or new opportunity that's just going to rise up out of nowhere. So when we start to look through our miracle eyes, our miracle mind, then we'll see that even the most challenging things are actually blessings in disguise. And they're designed to help us to up-level and to grow. So if you're feeling uncomfortable, if you're feeling challenged in this moon, it's because not because you're doing something wrong, it's because you're doing something right, and you're about to have a big breakthrough. So just keep going, keep moving forward, trusting that the universe is carrying you and taking you somewhere even better than you could ever imagine. So in the meantime, Venus is just going to be moving into Leo, and so Venus in Leo is all about romance and big shows of affection and almost like this childlike love and wonder, wanting to create and celebrate. So Venus in Leo is really warm. Our hearts are warm and inviting, and it's a beautiful time. Venus loves to be in Leo. At least I think so. I'm a Leo. You'd have to ask Venus for yourself. But so Venus is really going to come in with some healing medicine because it's going to be trine to Chiron and Aries. So even if we're feeling mental restlessness that's causing inner child wounding, the universe is allowing our hearts to be open and to be warm, to create that safety net for our inner child to purge what needs to be purged. But at the same time, Venus is going to be squaring Uranus. So with Venus square to Uranus, you might be experiencing sort of a push-pull. There's a part of you that might want to be experiencing independence and wanting to be free, and then another part of you that wants to be with those people that you love, especially your partner. So you might want to just give yourself a little bit more space, because we're going to be processing a lot of mental energy and working through a lot of limiting beliefs. And so during those times, it's important that we take time for ourselves. Otherwise, we may start to trigger other people. And especially with Venus square to Uranus, what can happen is that there might be just some blow up that happens out of nowhere. Remember, Uranus is like lightning. And so it could just come out of nowhere and everything could be fine, and all of a sudden you have a weird fight or something happens, and we just got to roll with the punches and know that whatever is happening, it's something that we've created with our thoughts, with our feelings, and with our vibration. So forgive yourself. Forgive yourself if you have any blow-ups with people, especially the people that you love, and just know that Venus in Leo is forgiving, and fire energy might be really big and hot for a minute, but it blows over. And Uranus in Taurus is really great at holding space and feeling stable. So if there's any type of occurrence where you do project onto others or others trigger you and it causes some sudden surprise thing, know that it's because there's a shift that needs to happen, and maybe you weren't able to create that shift on your own with your current level of consciousness, and so the universe had to create a situation that might be temporarily uncomfortable, but it's actually going to bring you closer to your truth and to your authenticity, and it can create even closer relationships. And so this is also a time to evaluate your friendships and evaluate the people in your life, your networks, and figure out if the people that you love, the causes that you love, the things that you're drawn to, make sure that they're positive and nurturing and blessing you and honoring you, because this can be a time too where we may feel vulnerable in our friendships or vulnerable in our networks. So just really protect your energy field, stay in a place of high vibration, and you won't need to worry about those types of things. And if something does happen where you do feel uncomfortable or there is some type of shift, honor the change and know that if something is going away, let it, because it's going to create the space for something new and more in alignment with you to manifest. So Mars is in Aquarius right now, and in just a few weeks Mars is going to go retrograde. And so in these next few weeks, if you want to get something done, make sure that you do it now, because once we get to Mars retrograde in a couple weeks, things are really going to slow down, and our action state, our willpower, is going to become more internal. So in the external, things may be happening a little bit slower than normal. So for this, what you're going to want to do is just really look at where your desire nature is, look at your work habits, and figure out if anything needs to change now. Because once we get to Mars retrograde, it's going to really slow down a lot, and you'll have to wait a couple weeks. So start preparing now. But the good news is that Mars is going to be opposing the North Node in Leo. So we have this opposition of Leo wanting to be out and being seen in the world as an individual, expressing our unique gifts and abilities, our divine purpose, which the North Node represents. And then Mars in Aquarius is wanting to do the work of the people and bring in these humanitarian causes. But Leo and Aquarius are two sides of the same coin. And so what we can experience in this new moon with this opposition is that we may be feeling a push-pull between what we want to do personally and how we need to serve the collective, and we need to find that balance. And this is actually a blessing, because wherever you're at on the spectrum, this opposition will help you to find that equilibrium. So if you've been maybe giving a little bit too much and maybe losing yourself or your identity, this is a time to come back. And if you're maybe a little bit too focused on your own needs, or maybe ego is taking over a little bit, this is a time to shift back into how you can use your gifts and abilities and your passions that Source and Sophia has given you to serve a greater purpose. When we have North Node aspects, it's always a time where there's fated connections, and we'll meet people or doors will open, and it's really taking us to that next level. But what we need to ask is our heart, and make sure that if doors are opening or if opportunities are coming up for you or people are coming into your life, make sure that your heart is telling you to do it, and not because you feel pressured into it because of some other outside source. And that can happen with Mars opposing the North Node, is we can lose ourselves or our path because it might be easier to think that somebody else knows more or has a better idea of what's good for us than we do. And that's never true. We can get advice and we can receive support from people, but nobody knows better what's good for you than you do. So just make sure that you're following your heart and you're gonna be fine. Saturn and Capricorn is gonna be trine to Uranus and Taurus. So this is a great time for us to feel a lot of support, especially because we have so much air energy with Gemini. We have a lot of anchoring with Saturn and Capricorn and Uranus in Taurus. They're both earth signs, and they're both really about achievement and creating abundance and working towards those things that we want and not giving up. And Saturn represents the traditional. It represents the fatherly aspect of the universe. It represents how things have always been done, and it represents hard work and dedication to pay off in something great. And Uranus is completely opposite. It's all about the new and the advanced and the visionary and thinking outside of the box and doing things that have never been done before. So when Saturn and Uranus are working together in this trine, it's a beautiful opportunity for us to look at traditional ways of doing things and put a new spin on them and find that balance of the new and the tried and the true. Saturn and Uranus also rule Aquarius, and so what we have to understand is that if we want to break the mold, if we want to do something different, we got to learn the rules first before we can break them. We have to perfect them, and that's what Saturn teaches us. So make sure that you're open to what's been done and that you honor it and have gratitude for it, but know that we're moving into a new age. And the way that we've always done things might not be the way that works anymore. So we have to be open to those changes. And Saturn and Uranus is giving us that grounded energy to feel more supported in these. So what Saturn and Uranus are trying to teach us is that instead of pointing the finger about what's wrong, break the mold and choose to bring a new idea in. Choose to have solutions rather than problems, and choose to be a visionary rather than a victim. So in this new moon in Gemini, this is a time for you to transform your mind, to think new thoughts, to find your community, find your tribe, and to connect with those people who are on the same path as you. So allow the energy of Gemini to transform your mind, your heart, your body, and your spirit, and learn something new, create, celebrate, and realize that you can have your hand in all sorts of different pies. So open up to that multifaceted part of you and be open to finding new talents and new abilities that you never even thought possible. Break the mold and be open to loving yourself through any surprises or sudden changes that can happen. And this new moon in Gemini is going to be a beautiful time for witnessing and getting curious about how life can really support us and bring us to new levels of peace and clarity. So that is this Mermaid Moon Report. And if you're interested in the services that I offer, please visit my website at meaganmermaid.com. And until next time, angel wishes and mermaid kisses. Love you all, mermaids and mermen. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.